Welcome to Winning on Wednesday. My name is Juan Vitas. I'm the founder of Winning on Wednesday. Winning on Wednesday is a platform that meets every Wednesday at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And the purpose is to build meaningful relationship and expand your network. And we also promote the brands. Our brand marketing is different from any other networking group because we would like to promote our guests and audience and our members. So speaking of this, I always say people do business who they know, like, and trust. And knowing, like, and trust, I want to introduce my great friend, Stephen Wilson, who I know for many years, and it's a pleasure to have him on my show. How you doing, Steve?
Good morning, Juan, and thank you for having me. To be on your Wednesdays is an honor, so thank you.
Thank you. And quickly tell us about yourself.
About myself, I am currently what a lot of people were referring to, and I refer to myself as a content marketer. That is something that my business professional evolutions came about 15 years ago. And it was an idea that in seeing where content was coming up, whenever I read a lot of trade magazines, the word content was coming up. And then when I was told somebody back when I was starting looking into content, they said, "What the blank is content?" And I said, "Well, it's normally called copy, ad copy, what have you." But, and he goes, "Why did it change?" And I said, "I think it's changed because of the advent of digital, and digital content, where the content now, it used to be like copy for a direct mail piece or copy for a print ad, but now it's just content and it could be, used everywhere on your blog, on your website, and your newsletters and the like. So the idea of focusing on content and how it can move the needle for companies is something that I've really enjoyed doing.
Excellent. We'll definitely go into that. So tell us about the early years. Where did you grow up? And I mean, I know your history, I know your story because we're friends, but
Yeah,
let our audience know where did it all start?
the years were mostly in Long Beach. I grew up there and lived there until I got married in '78. I met a woman, Anna Marie, my wife of 46 years. And we lived up on an estate in Old Brookville for a couple of years. That was pretty nice. And then from there, our friend who was the accountant said, "Hey, you guys should really be buying a house." And so we bought a house where the retail price of the house 46 years ago in Babylon Village was a fraction of what my friends' sons and daughters are paying for a down payment on their houses. So it was a long time ago, but it's nice to see because the down when I was moved in, we were one of the younger couples, and now I noticed over the last year or so, a lot of young couples are moving in on the block. So it's doing that whole changeover.
I grew up in Long Beach for a lot of folks out there that don't know, but it's a great town, a beautiful, city, and I can't say nothing but good things about Long Beach. So it's a great experience. But so tell us about did you have any ideas what you wanted to be professionally when you were a kid? Like, because everybody has different inspirations of, being wanting a doctor, lawyer. How about yours? Did you wanted to be a writer or something like that off the bat, or
No,
did you?
it's funny. The writing thing didn't really come into me until like college, so to speak. But when I was little, I was a jock, little kid playing, one sport each season and going from there. And not that I ever aspired to becoming a pro football player or whatever, but I didn't really know what I wanted. I hadn't really been exposed to that much, out there kind of things or whatever. There was no social media obviously back then, and I told my niece now, who's 27, we were just a quick aside about back then, she said about the phone, and she said we were talking about the phone, and she goes, "Well, who was calling you?" And I just said I didn't know, and she goes, "Well, why didn't you know who was calling you?" Because our phone was attached to the wall and it didn't have a caller ID. So she looked at me and she goes, "Oh, you had a tethered phone."
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Okay, a tethered
The
phone with
phone.
her ID. I mean, that's what my world was, back in
It was, yeah, the
70.
struggle was real back then. People didn't realize there was a lot of
Yeah.
simple back then. It was a lot, definitely simple. And did you have any role models or anybody that inspired you at that time?
Yeah, I would have to say my first real job out of college was at CMP Publishing. They were a pretty big publisher on Community Drive in Manhasset. And the man who ran it was a guy named Jerry Leeds. And he was always highly regarded, whatever else. And I was there Well, I was there for 3 years and we moved our office like three times. So I thought that was normal. Every company would expand like that, whatever else. But he just taught me things and brought me in and, explained some things. I don't know. He just took like a liking to me. But I would have to say he enhanced my experience by working for him so greatly because he like took me under his wing and, showed me things. And whether it's a thing about going on printing press, you tell a young artist today, I just work with a young artist to do a flyer for a company. And I say, well, this is good. We don't have to go on press and check the mechanicals. And she gave me a look like, what are you talking about? And this was just a woman who did the whole thing, but it was all digital, on computer and everything else. And it's just, one of the things that have changed in 30 or 40 years.
Oh yeah, it's a lot difficult. We just had a conversation with David Goldberg. He was telling us how they had to splice and edit everything manually, but now
Right.
they have the software that does everything easily, and you could do it. There's an undo button now, you know. Back then there was no undo buttons.
Wow, I could have used an undo button a few back.
Exactly, exactly. So what about your hobbies? Any hobbies or interests that you have?
I guess my one big hobby is I referee high school football in Suffolk County, which has always been a lot of fun. This year, I was unfortunate I was not able to because I had back surgery in June. So you need really like 6 months from surgery to do it. So, but I did go to most of the games on my crew because in high school football and well, everywhere in Long Island, you work in a crew of 5 guys. So we're sort of like a traveling rock band. We go from one game to the other and whatever. But my crew did really well this year. They get rated each game during the regular season, and then they do, and the crew that has the four best crews that have the best do the county championship game for Division One, Two, Three, or Four at Stony Brook University. So that was pretty cool.
I'm just curious, what made you get into reffing? Like, what made you? Like, what was the like?
I, I played growing up in Long Beach. I played at the Long Beach Rec Center, on those windy, cold nights when I was like 7, 8 years old and whatever. And then from there, I made the progression to midget football, and then from there to junior high football, and then to high school football. And I played for a couple of years at Ithaca College until I got hurt.
Oh
And
wow.
it was just something that I had. It wasn't like, I mean, like now when the TV yesterday they had 3 games, football games on. I think I watched like just the a little bit of the Jets and a little bit of the Giants, but I don't watch every football game that comes on. And then when I read about it in Newsday, they said they needed referees, and this is going back like 30 years ago. Now there's a serious need. So I went to the first meeting, and the first meeting, the guy goes like, 20 or 30 of us there. And he goes, a lot of you guys think us referees think the best game referee is when we throw like 20 penalty flags. But that's not the case. We try to make sure the game goes smoothly, and we try really not to throw penalty flags. And it was like a light bulb went off in my head. It's like, oh my God, these guys aren't out to get the kids. They're just there to help the gameplay. And that was the clincher for me. And when he said that, I that's when I joined up. So that was 30 years ago, and now
Wow.
I'm a ref. So it takes up, from all September through October on weekends, and then in November there's playoff games. So it's a really compact hobby, so to speak. But not,
Wow.
yeah, it's
Uh,
nice.
so tell us what you go to school for. What was your major?
My main was psychology, with the game plan being I was going to be a shrink for little kids and like some kind of like a high school coach. That was something that came it to me in my mind. And because once this is right after the summer before junior or senior of high school, my dad had got me a job working at a big ad agency in Manhattan. So we take the train, whatever else. I didn't have to go in on Fridays, I remember. And I was like in the mailroom, so I got involved in all these different kinds of things, whatever else. But then I heard a story that there was one account group within the same agency that was trying to steal account from another account group in the same agency. And I spoke to, I don't know if I spoke to my father or my mother about that, but I said, that's not nice. Here I am, like a 16, 17-year-old schmuck saying, you can't have one account group in another agency, in the same agency, stealing another account from another. That's just, it's, like I've been used to playing on sports teams, and it's sort of like, letting the other sports team, I don't know, it just, that really upset me. And that really said, maybe this isn't for me. And then I thought about it, and I had just done some volunteer work with some disadvantaged kids, which up in Ithaca. And I said, yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll do this. So that's when I decided to shift gears and go into psychology. And I actually went out to Fresno, California, did a year in graduate school, going for a PhD. And then something happened, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. So I came back to Long Island. A friend of my father's set me up an interview with Jerry Leeds at CMP Publishing, and that's where I got the job. And it was a great opportunity for me because it was pretty low key. You didn't have to trek into the city. And Mr. Leeds would send me to these one day how to write a press release, and one day how to write printing, going on. He sent me on the printing presses and taught me all about that kind of stuff. And that was good because that was my boss would never let me, when I was writing copy, I was never allowed to use the word unique. She always felt that was like an overused word, adjective or whatever else. So to this day, I don't use unique. And when I read it in something, I always think it's funny, that they didn't have what's her name there as her boss, as your boss, or else you never would have used the word unique. So it was interesting. And then from there, I got into advertising. I got a job in Madison Avenue working on the Fisher Price toy account. I was the account exec, which was pretty phenomenal. And they were at the time owned by Quaker Oats, so they had a really big packaged goods mentality, and they had a lot of brand managers. I don't forget how many, but I'll say like 15, 20 different brand managers.
Right.
That had all their own. Some guys had toy coin, grip plan, pen, and other ones had different action figures and what have you. But it was really interesting, and I learned more in that job than I learned probably anywhere else.
You said Fisher Price. You just reminded me, like a catalog. Didn't they used to have a catalog, like a Fisher Price
Uh,
catalog?
Sears had a big catalog
Yeah, catalog with the Fisher Price.
last week that Hasbro, which was always one of the, it was Hasbro, Mattel, and
Yeah, yeah,
Fisher.
yeah.
But Hasbro is laying off I forget how many, like 15% of their
Oh
employees.
my gosh.
Hasbro. It's like, and especially when, well, I know during our slowest time in the office was during Christmas, like right now, because we would have to do all the commercials. We probably shot about 30-second commercials and did about probably like 25, 30 full color, full page bleed ads as well. But they all had to be in the magazines and the TV stations and everything, well before Christmas. So when actual Christmas time, we were like, shooting airplanes down the hallway, more or less.
So tell us about the what made you go on your own after, having this experience?
Yeah,
What was the deciding factor?
I had an opportunity. I was working for the New York Times Magazine Group, which at the time owned the Golf Digest magazine. And I was working for Golf Digest as their special director of events. Yeah, or director of special events, what have you. And how it worked was we had a special division at Golf Digest called the Golf Digest Tennis Marketing Division. And when an advertiser, 12-time advertiser, full page, wanted to do a promotion, they would be allowed to work with the Golf Digest Marketing Group, which was me and a staff of like 12 people. So, for instance, how it worked, I worked with the sales guys who sold the ad sales space because they were in touch with everybody. And so one day, this Bill Decker, a friend of mine, calls me. I use the ad sales guys for Payne Weber. I don't know if you remember Payne Weber, but that was back in the day. And they said, oh, they have some extra money for do a national golf promotion, but they only want to do a high end golf promotion, which I always would like snicker at because I don't know. There's more public golfers than there are private golfers, but across the country. But so I remember, and this is when just everything about data was worth something, and whatever else. And I remember that Golf Digest, when they started it at that time, like 30 years ago, what they would do is they would literally handwrite a postcard to every golf club pro at every country club in America and say, please send us the name of your club champion, which was only one because it was male and there wasn't a senior or a female. Send us the name of your club champion and we'll put him in the February issue of Golf Digest. And the reason they did that was they couldn't think of a reason why people would want to buy a golf magazine in February. So they decided, well, maybe they want to see their names, which turned out to be, a great thing. So this is going back already, like in the mid '80s, early '80s. And then I said, wait a minute. They said, well, what are we going to do? We got to get back to Payne Weber like by the next day or two. And I said, well, I got an idea. And he goes, well, and I said, we're sitting on 5,000 names of guys that won club championships from all across the country. And he goes, yeah. And I said, there we go. That's who they want to reach. We just got to figure out a hook, the way to do it. So what I did was I created the first ever club champion invitational golf tournament, which was held in Orlando. We had a big meeting. All right, where do we hold this thing? Where's most accessible for everybody? And Orlando was deemed the right place. And Grand Cypress had just teamed up with Jack Nicklaus at literally that like day to open up a new resort and with the Jack Nicklaus golf course. So we were the first event there, and we got a lot of good free publicity out of it as well. Also, so what we did was we put together this whole big like kit, with like a certificate, for winning the club champion, and then a really cool invitation in the envelope as well. And then in the first year, we had the event. We had 195 people come and pay
Wow.
their own way to Orlando. And then what we did was we did a lot of tie-ins to really work, because what I feel and what makes me different, just to get ahead of yourself, I always feel that you could do one thing, but if you do other things to tie it in and get more leverage out of it and more exposure out of it. So just an example with this club champion thing is that we got all the names of the people and the addresses. And then what we did was we matched them up with the local Payne Weber office in their neighborhood, anywhere they lived across the country. And that they took them out and I don't know if they sent them, it was a long time ago, they sent them a sleeve of balls or they took them out to play golf or whatever else. And allegedly people got, clients out of it as well also.
Wow.
And that's the kind of stuff I like to really take something new and just create something that works on many levels.
Actually,
And that
that's
event,
this is a good time for the golden nugget moment. And actually, this is a perfect time for the golden nugget moment. So the golden nugget moment would be, is there any valuable information that you would like to give, advice to a business or a person to better their career? Is there any examples or information that or good examples? You were just giving some great examples, by the way. So just I'd like to hear more about this because this
yeah,
is definitely a golden nugget moment time.
my golden nugget moment, and anybody who knows me will agree with that, is that I really like to stress to do figure out a strategy, which 9 out of 10 times includes doing some type of minimal research, whether it's just some kind of constant contact, fill in the blank, form to do research via constant contact or some other type. But and also too, to segment. A lot of people don't want to segment their audience, like you were talking about earlier in our previous conversation. Segmenting is really important because from a content point of view, if you could tailor content to a targeted segmented audience, your response rates are going to go up because you're going to be able to engage with them on a much higher level. And a lot of people are like, oh, okay, I get it. I didn't realize, that was the situation.
Yeah, it's about value, right? It's
Yeah.
it's it's
So,
about value. It's about value added proposition, as they say. So,
yeah.
it's definitely doing that. So, no, great. And thank you for sharing that. Tell us about do you belong to any other networking groups or organizations or spheres of influence?
I am halfway. I have one step in working with Score, which is a really interesting situation. It's a bunch of. I don't feel so old when I'm there, so that's good. But No, they're all really nice people, and the sense that I got out of SCORE, I had met Ron Greenberg once, and we became friends, and he's a big shot at SCORE, and he said, "Oh, why don't you come join SCORE?" And I was like, "I don't think I'm old enough." So he laughed, and he goes, "No, there's people, and also too, I'm not, I'm still fully working. I call myself semi-retired." So he goes, "No, that's fine. We have people that are working too as well, and whatever else." So last year I started doing SCORE, did some training, and I last year I ran. One of the big components reach outs that they do is to teach these classes in local libraries on different topics, how to start a business and whatever. And there's one that I lead is how to use email to further success your business. So it's a dog and pony show. I have a PowerPoint which I refer to just occasionally, just to give me what my next words are on the thing. But it's really interesting to work. Normal you get maybe like 15, 20 people to come to a library, and they ask some questions as well. And I try to ask some questions beforehand just to see how serious they are about it, and also to make sure that I incorporate in my presentation whatever they do. But I like doing like my wife goes, "Why do you do these email marketing classes?" I said, "Because it really brings me down to my basic roots, of like how it works." And sometimes I when I'm teaching a class, I'll get an idea for a client that I've been struggling on because I'm went back, if you know what I mean. And by going back and finding something simple, I say, "Oh, this could work for so and so." And so that's really been good, and I enjoy doing that, and hopefully I'll continue to do that in some capacity.
So tell us about your company.
Strategic marketing works is so how I started on my own. I'll just segue to that. So when I was doing the work for Payne Weber for a couple of years, they pulled me into the city for lunch one day in a nice fancy restaurant, and they said, "Listen, we would like to expand what we're doing in golf, but we would like to see if you'd be interested if we could hire you as our so that we would be your only client, and try that for like a year and a half, 2 years, and see how it goes, because that's part of our 5-year goal." And I said, "Yeah, that sounds great." So we worked it out, and it was pretty favorable, and I could work at a home, which was a really weird concept at the time. Now it's like, SOP. But it was good because the woman, she lived in, uh, where am I? Manhasset. So I would go see her, to go over things and go over the phone. There wasn't all this technology, that we have now to do that. So I did that for 2 years and built up their program really well, and to the point where they were getting, sales leads out of it at all. See, that was the one thing, particularly in sports marketing. I got into sports marketing because a friend of mine's father once said, "Steve, if you want to be successful in anything, get into something that you know and you like." And then it was either like sports or women. I don't know if that's sexist, but so I said, "All right, I'll get into sports. I don't like the options with women." So I got into sports, and that's how I got into. Well, that's how, but I got led me to get into IMG, International Management Group, and then also to the Golf Digest, and then from there I got to work for Major League Baseball, doing the licensing and the toys because I had the toy background and fell in pretty well, so that was good. But and then a friend of mine suggested we do this sports travel company, because he was worked for a travel company for a long time, and I had sports, and so that worked, and that became a viable business that we had for about 8 or 9 years, and then it didn't work between the partners, so we did a mutually agreeable separation, and I left, and he stayed up in Massachusetts and did that.
Well, I know you and we've worked on a couple of stuff too, on a couple of
Yeah,
companies, a couple campaigns, and I know that I've learned from you. And you taught me about the value and importance of words. I never realized about that, and thank you for that. And I just wanted to always say thank you
You-
for introducing me to the world of the writing and the importance of from a marketing point of view. You know, I always thought about, hey, doing websites is just that, but we're just talking about value, right? Value added, and and it's important to have your writing, your design, everything. Everything has to be of. It's just not one component. It's a lot of things, but you have to sharpen, make sure that that's, exactly 100%.
And I think when people look at the websites that you do, I think they definitely recognize that because I think in looking at the websites I know you've done, I mean, there really seems to be a nice combination of look and value and copy, and it does work together real well.
Yeah, it's always about the user experience, right? It's about like I always think about having a guest over your house, right? How are you
Right,
going to treat them? Are you going to treat them as like a robot? Or are you going to
right,
treat them as, hey, come in and warm, friendly invite? That's
right.
what you want, and you want that value. And I guess with your writing skills, uh, you know, um, I have to, full disclosure with AI, it's definitely improved my writing skills because I'm not a writer, but it's definitely given me another, instead of having you Steve, hey, check this for me because I used to do that often, right? But I didn't want to bother you too much.
Right.
So now that you have this tools, it's just tools.
Yeah, this is what I told 2 weeks ago. Two partners of a client of mine called me up and said, "Listen, let's have coffee. We want to ask about this AI stuff, whatever else." So I pulled out and pulled out my iPad and went to Chat GBT, whichever, and I said basically what Chat GBT is doing, at least at this stage of the game, it's going to make writers into it's going to make editors into no, it's going to make writers into editors. That's what we're going to be doing because
Yep.
they're going to write very bland, generic um, content, you
Correct.
know, written by AI, which will be okay, but it's not going to have any of that warmy, schmaltzy stuff that I feel, and I think you would agree that a website needs to,
It's
engage people.
no schmutz on it, right?
Yeah, right.
Just
That's the word. The word.
no schmutz. Okay, no good. But hey, Steve, thank you so much for doing this. And again, you've been a great friend, and I really wanted to thank you for everything. Always been supportive, and thank you for doing this for me.
No problem.
And what's the best way to people to contact you?
People can call or text me on my cell, Stephen Wilson, at 516-965-8870.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Steven, and for sharing your story. And if you'd like to be a member of Winning on Wednesday, simply go to our website, winningonwednesday.com, and click on our first time guest, and we'll see you next time. Thank you again, Steve, and thank you.